that going off the ground and then move on. So my last piece is Alyssa Heath, who's here this evening, Emily Main, and Colin Kofer have just been tremendous. They've been escorting me on the informational bond facts tour, campaign trail, not really campaign trail, but more of a tour, I'd say, providing facts to the public and doing an excellent job of it. So we asked them some educational questions while we were making a video for the public about the bond. But then we wanted to talk about education and made a little video about that that we'd like to show you this evening.
One of my favorite teachers, Miss Owens, she's so experienced on how to help prepare us to conquer AP tests because she wants us to pass, and she just has this motivation that transfers to the students, which makes us actually really want to learn and actually prepare and study for the test so we can have that credit for college.
Are you excited to come to school every day?
Yes, definitely. I love this campus and I love the students here, and the atmosphere is just nothing less than incredible.
How long have you been going to the school district?
I've been going 4 years for high school.
And as far as this facility, when you're walking around, how does it make you feel to be on this really beautiful campus?
Oh gosh, just amazing. I have a huge sense of pride for my campus and my school.
And how would you describe this school?
Really on a resurge right now. Going up, AP programs are doing a lot better. Sports programs, as I said previously, amazing. Yeah, just all good things.
And how do you think this high school is going to help you be successful the rest of your life?
Well, I know the teachers, really quality teachers, preparing us for college. Good workload, academics are solid. So I think that'll translate into the next level.
How would you describe this school to people that's never been there before?
I would describe the school as a family. Like, we're all very, very close with each other, and especially because we're small, we all know each other, so we interact like a big family.
And how's that helping you be successful?
Because it gives me connections now that I can use later on in life, and just the support that I need in order to go far.
You seem like a confident young woman. How has school helped you with that?
Having people around me who support me all the time has definitely helped boost my confidence, and then having teachers that I'm especially close with has also helped just to build me up into the person that I am.
Can you give me an example of how the teachers are doing that?
You have like Mr. Roland, for example, who's taught us from 6th grade when we first had him that we all need to be our own individual people, and he's given us skills that we can use for the rest of our lives.
Like what kind of skills are you talking about?
Everything from how to hold yourself and how to be professional to how to write a checkbook.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome.
And you think most of the students take that in and are actually using the information?
I think that we do. I think one of the things that we have here that's so special is we all know each other, so we put the pressure on each other to actually take in what we're learning and to use it.
So you're saying there's sort of a group psychology where you're all working together and pushing each other?
Absolutely, yes, like siblings.
Really?
Yeah.
How, can you give me an example of a friend and how they might have done that for you?
I have a friend who's also interviewing right here, Alyssa Heath, who's helped push me to be like NHS president. I wasn't originally going to run, but she pushed me to do it, and it's been a great experience.
So that support is really beneficial.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That concludes superintendent comments. Really proud of our students. I did want to take just a moment to go in a complete different direction from celebratory just to a bit more and a bit somber. That Hurricane Michael, I just was looking at a couple schools earlier this morning, and they were just devastated. And so while we are hopeful to do things at our school sites, I think we should also be very thankful that we have buildings that are solid and in place, and just I think holistically our hearts go out to the families that lost homes and students that are displaced from their schools at the moment. So thank you.
We had a hurricane in this area back in 1936. so it can happen. But my wife's from North Carolina, and her nieces and nephews are still not back in school from the flooding and everything. They're still not back. But you guys did a great job on the video. Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. And it's not hard for me to think back about myself in that age. It was over 30 years ago. But thinking back at us at that age, I'm really impressed by how mature and eloquent and well-spoken these kids are. They are just the maturity is amazing. And they're still kids, but they're very mature and intelligent. I'm very impressed. The best is yet to come for you. So, thank you. All right, we're going to go on to 8.08, board member comments. Ms. Jensen.
Just a few comments. First of all, our students are amazing. I see a few people tearing up out there because that's just amazing. So I just love you guys. You're fabulous and you're going to have bright futures. I'm excited about all the career technical education. That's going to be outstanding. I can't wait to see that going. I want to just thank everyone that's been out for the last several nights. Many of you I see out there, and Lee and Brandon and several of you and our students that we've been out talking about the bond. So that's been several nights this week. So, and all of our administrators, I appreciate all that you do. This is a long day and then a long evening, so I appreciate that. And that's really all I have for tonight. So just thanks for all the hard work that everyone's doing, and thanks for our volunteers. And
Thank you, Phil.
I'm just proud of our community.
I totally agree. Thank you. Mr. Falscraft?
I'll start with Yolanda. These minutes are incredible. I have had an opportunity in 18 years of government service to see different boards and commissions and councils, and nothing bothers me worse than having a new member come on and decide that we suddenly need to reinvent the wheel. And having minutes like this and having things memorialized and catching the high points of it is something that someone can go back on later and say, I think I understand the reasoning behind this. And so, excellent, Yolanda, as usual. Dr. Cooper, yeah, there he is. Welcome to your 10th hour here. I'm happy that one of the things you've done right away is taking care of our sports advisors. I've had concerns that there's drop off in some of the participation levels, so it's really important to me that the coaches and the people who support our sports are happy and don't have to worry about paperwork and things like that. So thank you for that. To Kelly's point, the community volunteers and events. There's been some discussion, some hard line discussions and questions, and everybody has remained civil through those discussions. So I think the volunteers that are coming out to those things, and the tea and crumpets are really important, but they set like the, did I just say that? That's you, Lee, tea and crumpets. But in all seriousness, it sets a tone where people can express varying opinions and be treated with respect. Alyssa, one of my things is I like to see continuum between campuses and grades and kids being excited about where they're going and what and remembering. And I think you taking on looking at all your campuses is really important to the little kids more so than you know. At some point, if you can get one of them to stay up late enough, bring somebody in and put them up here and give them a life-changing experience when they're very small. Finally, Ms. Testolito.
Yes.
There you are. I love your automobile. I love people's automobiles because yours knows how to get to the parking spot every day and stay there all day, morning till night. Good. That's it for me.
I was wondering what she was trying. Really quick, I just want to say one more thing. I'm sorry I'm done, but these are amazing notes. I really appreciate that. So she has everything up here, all of our little flyers and everywhere we need to be. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the first time we've had those ever.
You're hired.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'd like to thank Dr. Weiss and whoever the parents might be involved over at High Desert who started the after-school sports programs, enrichment programs, but the sports focus that you were reporting on, Alyssa, because we've always had a rich musical arts program at the junior high, of course with the bells and now with the dancing feet, but not all kids want to do that. And I think it's wonderful that there's a sports avenue there, because I think it does definitely lend to school pride, and those kids are dancing anyway. And if they can put that energy towards something positive, like a sports program, as opposed to hanging out and bugging people at McDonald's or here or there, only good things can come from it. And actually, I think it helps, maybe helps with the bridge between junior high and high school, because they can look forward to participating similarly in high school. So I really hope it flourishes, and I know that there's some parents who are really help with this.
Yeah,
And so they should be thanked.
I'm going to give you a couple names, and then I had filmed 3 of the kids in the sports program today, and I was using my camera, and I put it on super slow-mo. so the kids are talking with that, and so I feel really bad because it was a great video, and I didn't tell the kids yet. But Miss T, I know she's thrilled. She's running the cross country there. She was instrumental, Mr. Fox. And then Don Snyder has been really, really helpful in getting that program off the ground. Miss T, is there anybody else that's helped out with that?
Mr. Baha too.
Okay. Miss Jennings?
Yes.
Yep. Yep. So, and Dr. Bice and
Yes.
all of you working as a team. So thank you. And so those are the names.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to reiterate what my colleagues already said in regard to the community. I'm very proud of our community for their efforts recently and their involvement in whatever issues that are important to them. The most recent has been the efforts that we've seen in regard to the bond. I'm just really impressed by all the people involved, from people like Lee that is very involved in all aspects of it, to I see people that are supporting it, that are running for office. That's very nice to see. I see people that are from the community that have children. I see people that have no stake in it. So it's really nice to see everyone involved, and I'm very proud of our community, and it's just a really wonderful thing to see. Alyssa, thank you so much. I already said, no one's done this before. In my 10 years on the board, I haven't seen anyone give us handouts, and there's been some excellent student reps, don't get me wrong. I'm sure you know Loka was amazing last year. Brianna was great. I do think it's good that you're doing it for the entire year. I think that's the way it used to be until only about maybe 4 years ago. And Nick Laporcio, who now is a teacher at Vasquez sometimes. He's a substitute teacher. Yeah. And he used to be the student rep. And I think Ken had a great point. If you do get some of the younger kids involved, it can really be a life-changing experience for them, on any level. And it could be simply that you have some input directly from them that you relate to us, or you even bring them here, I'm sure. But Mr. King will be okay with that. So thank you so much for that. All right, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. We have the minutes of the special board meeting. We have the minutes of the regular board meeting, and we had a special board meeting on a Saturday a while back. The warrant register, the personnel action report, and 9.05 William lawsuit settlement first quarter report 2018-2019. Do I have a move to move in the consent agenda, please?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Falsgraf.
You have somebody who wants to talk.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Is that about 9.01?
That is.
Let me see.
I believe it was on mine.
Thank you, Dee. Go ahead. 9.01 for the minutes of the special board meeting. Yes, and you were here. So
Yes,
you
I was
should
here.
know.
We have a call to order, we have a flag salute, we have approval for the agenda, and we have an adjournment. We had a secret meeting. Doesn't say anything in here what you guys did. For the Brown Act, you have to have that. So it should say the training that you had.
Okay, I think that's a good point. We can just indicate.
So we can just add board governance workshop to the minutes.
And,
I'll
say,
approve it as amended.
I'll make a motion to amend them to include the term board governance workshop.
I'll second that. Do we have consensus in regard to that? Yeah.
Everybody happy?
Okay, very good.
I just don't want somebody coming back and biting you in the.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Thank you.
Good eye.
And thank you, Alan, for being here too. You were here too. So we're approving 9.01 as amended, and no amendments to 9.02 through 9.05. And Mr. King, do you mind just for the public edification explaining what 9.05 is, the William lawsuit settlement?
Absolutely. Actually, I'll have Dr. Cooper come up and share a little bit about the Williams Act.
Just shortly, please.
Okay.
I just don't want people to think it was some lawsuit that we just recently did or something. There's a history to this.
Real brief, what we have going on is they'll come out to our sites to make sure that we have all of our materials, resources, textbooks, check our teachers, and make sure that we're sufficient in all of those areas. We just recently had a first quarter report, and we're looking good. No issues at all whatsoever.
Excellent, thank you. So there was a lawsuit years and years back against districts that requires them to make this disclosure quarterly. Okay, all in favor of consent agenda 9.01
Aye.
through 9.05? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, that passes 4-0-0. Moving on to educational and student services, 10.01, board policy 5146, married, pregnant, parenting students. And also 10.02, board policy 4033, lactation accommodations. Mr. King?
Okay, so again, I'll have Dr. Cooper come up. The board has had an opportunity to do first and second reads on both these items. These have been vetted through our legal resources, and I'll briefly have Dr. Cooper explain, or rather, does the board even have any questions at this point? Because I think we've vetted them out.
So I understand these are modern things in the modern workplace.
Exactly.
It's a good thing.
I have no question.
I have no questions. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
That was for 10.
That was for 10.1 and 10.02.
I'm sorry, I moved it
I think you,
Well, let's move it in, I'm sorry.
I'll move
Okay,
both
Ken?
in.
I'll second both. And we already took a vote on it, it was unanimous. We're moving 11, business and financial. Let's see. So if I go to Yolanda, is there a way to, I see that it says it's an action item on the computer. On the hard copy, is there a way to let the public and anyone that's going by the hard copy know that it's an action item? Is there a way of doing that without too much difficulty? Because if I were a member of the public and looking at,
I think there is. I will say yes.
yeah, can you please look into that? Because then they wouldn't know if it's an action item or not.
Sure.
And so, thank you so much if you could maybe put something on there. Just the language that we used to have is recommended that the board approve such, such and such, perhaps.
Which does show up on the electronic.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't show up on this.
it is, and it's one of the reasons we display it on the projector too, so
Absolutely.
they can look under type when it's up there.
But I think it's important if we just have it in here, because there isn't that many of them.
Does that say action or actin?
That says
There's an
action.
Imagine that.
It's action. Okay, thank you guys. Moving on to 11, business and financial. 11.01, public hearing, iLead hybrid charter renewal.
Okay, I'm going to have Ms. Patterson come up to introduce. And just for clarification, because the process is relatively new that we've been instituting, I just want to reiterate, we'll have the, if there's any folks that are speaking from the parent community or whatnot, or employees, then they should have filled out a card. And then 15 minutes on the presentation side. I think you guys have discussed that. And then 15 minutes or more pending board on Q&A.
And then 20 minutes maximum for the public comments.
Correct.
And, you know, if they have 7 people speaking, that's about, 20 to 21 minutes.
Yeah.
If they have some, they can have, 20 people, but if they have one, they take 1 minute.
1 minute per, yeah. Okay. Thank you. So Ms. Patterson, would you like to introduce?
Yes, we have Dawn Evenson. She is the CEO of, yeah.
Hi, Don.
Hi, everybody. I'm pretty sure you know me. And right now, my IT guy, Rondell, is working on getting this screenshot up there. While we wait for that, I'll just let you know that Rondell, in my very first teaching position, very first administrative position, he was one of my teachers, and it was like his first year. So you guys are lucky. He's awesome. He really is. While they're still working on getting that up, we have some people in the room that represent iLead. We have Nicole Kent and Monique Rogers. Monique runs iLead AV, and Nicole Kent oversees iLead Innovation Studios, or a subset of it. We have Linda Christek, Heather Ferentz, Laura Durrell, and Amir Carrick. He's over there. And I am going to ask for Linda and Amir to come up here with me so that I can hand over slides so that you don't have to listen to me yammer on the whole time. So they're going to join us as we get ready to look at this beautiful presentation.
So
You can't?
we have to get them ahead of time, when Amanda shows them, because we don't have a flash drive on our computer or the password.
We don't have a password?
Do you have a USB port or?
I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry.
You sent it to me. There's a small file. Can you email it to me?
Okay.
I'm going to reset your timer, just so you know when it gets orange, you have a minute left. And then red.
I remembered the password.
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, as you know, we are here tonight to talk to you about the iLead Hybrid Charter Renewal. This is our first charter that we had with Acton Agua Dulce. So it's been 5 years now, and we would like to report on our progress and talk to you a little bit about our program.
And just for clarification, this is not the iLead and Agua Dulce.
Yes, we have a seat-based, which is iLead Agua Dulce. We have an online, which is iLead Online, and we have an independent study, which is this one, iLead Hybrid. So our program for iLead Hybrid is kind of twofold. We have an independent study program that has some independent study studios, and learners can come and learn, get workshops. They study at the learning studio, they learn and collaborate and work in small groups, and they also get a lot of social emotional support and lessons. The largest subset of our program for iLead Hybrid is our home study program. We have about 2,800 learners in our home study program, and that is primarily in Ellicott County and then the contiguous counties. Up here you'll see where the locations are for our studio. We have iLead Antelope Valley, and they are located we do a property search, and so they are located up in the Antelope Valley as permitted under Ed Code Section 47605.1. And we also talked with the local school district there, so they are aware that iLead Antelope Valley is there, and we presented them with the property search information. We have the iLead Orange County studio, which we are allowed to have one studio out of county, and this is the one that is located out of county. And then we have we are proposing to have the iLead Agua Dulce studio so that we can serve some of our homeschool learners that are in the county and country area of Santa Clarita. There's a few of them in the Acton-AADUSD School District, and also up in the Antelope Valley. As you can see, our enrollment has grown steadily each and every year. So this year we have 2,889 learners that are in the iLead hybrid program, either in home study or in visiting a studio. Next, I'm going to ask Linda Christek to talk us through the student data. Linda is one of the members of our MAKER team. She supports the schools, and she also digs deep into the data and works with curriculum instruction. Linda?
Good evening. We have shown some improvement in our SBAC scores from the first year. We can also see that there is a chart that compares iLead hybrid to several of the other schools in this area: Inspire, Community Collaborative Charter, Compass Charter. I can't read that one.
Scale Leadership
There it is. Okay.
We're kind of the large
Okay. Scale Leadership Academy, Method School, and Valiant. And our scores, I believe, in ELA are the second highest. In math, we are, again, the second highest with 24.73. That was last year. We are at 27.1 in the 2018. These are last year's scores. Our growth over time, and this is showing the 3 years that we've taken the SBAC test. You can see by grade level and by total scores that we were 46% in our first year, and this year we were closer to 47%, so we showed an increase in our ELA. And we've gone from 27% in our first year total SBAC math scores to 29.1. Our student growth targets. Oh, this is MAP, sorry. Our MAP scores, we take an internal assessment, a local assessment called MAP from NWEA. And it is an individualized computer adaptive test that measures each child just where they're at. So we can find from that data the exact skills and concepts that the students have mastered, which ones they are ready to learn next. It also gives us data from the student to the class, to the grade, to the school, to the district level, and gives us projected proficiency on the SBAC in the spring, and we have found it to be extremely reliable in helping to predict how we will do. We do data protocol meetings every month with our schools and our grade level teams, where we go over the data, we look for strengths and trends on where we can grow, and we create action plans to improve our performance. Our graduation rate with iLead hybrid, we've gone from having 63% of the learners graduating UC, CSU eligible graduate to 72% in the 17-18 year. You can see that compares very favorably to the district and the state. We have 91.1% gravity.
Next, we have Mayor, who's going to talk you through a little bit of the finances.
I'll just touch on briefly, we have been successfully tracking the finances over the duration of the charter up to this point, and iLead Hybrid is one of our schools or entities that has very solid finances, always meets the reserves, and has positive cash flow over time. The projections that are in front of you are based on the existing number of learners. We basically literally froze that in time, although as evidence the program continues to grow by leaps and bounds. But even if we just continued on the trajectory with the existing number of learners, we're showing that over the next 5 years the program continues to be self-sufficient and that we're meeting all of the reserve requirements. Yeah, this is just the explanation of what I just said. I'm sorry. I was kind of jumping the gun. I should have read learner spotlights.
Next, we have Laura and Heather that are here, and really they're going to talk real quickly through some of the learner spotlights, and maybe they can have some statistics like how many facilitators they have in their program and how many learners that they serve.
Well, it is a great privilege to be here. It's fun to hear about all the exciting things that are happening in your school district, and we're privileged to be an extension of that. We have about 2,300 kids enrolled in our home study program, and it is so fun to see them excelling in their passions and seeing them grow in their socio-emotional growth. There's just story after story of just different kids and families. We've got kids that are competing at a high level in robotics. We've got children that are pursuing acting, dance, different pursuits, and it's really fun to see them growing in their goals. It's fun to see her here, and just whatever it is that they're passionate about. We're very proud of our kids because they are excelling. We enjoy meeting with them and learning all about the different things that they're pursuing and continue to grow, and I'm going to let Heather say a little bit as well.
I'm just going to speak quickly about our team and our staff, which we're super proud of. When we were first chartered here for our program, we had about 15 of us, and I think we're at about 150 total now. So our team has grown pretty rapidly over the past 4 years, and we have worked really, really hard to maintain a high quality team, and we've been pouring into our staff monthly at our staff developments, and even though we're spread out over quite some miles, we're excited to keep a tight-knit team. So thank you guys.
This is just a quote that we have many positive quotes and feedback from our families that have chosen homeschool for their learners. And this is just one of the many quotes that we have that really show support of the program, and it allows them the flexibility to choose how their child is educated, whether they attend some vendor classes or whether they order a particular curriculum or if they send them to a learning studio. So that flexibility is really important, especially in schools today for our families. I think that there was a slide on here about demographics that somehow we didn't have come up. So if you have questions about that, we can certainly search for that.
Can you just verbally tell us, please?
No, I can't remember statistics like that, I'm sorry. I used to be able to. Okay, so we look forward to our continued partnership with AADUSD, and I look forward to the questions that you might have to ask us.
Can you go back to that slide where you talked about assessment?
Absolutely.
What was it? It was like your
Map.
what was at the end?
Was it map assessments?
No, it wasn't just the actual SBAC, it was your progress monitoring or whatever.
Right there.
NWDA. What is it called?
NWDA.
Yeah, they want to see the
Just
map.
kind of, yeah, I went through that very
Next slide.
quickly, I'm just interested.
Go to the map.
That's down.
Down.
Slide
We
8.
can't tell which one it's on. Is the
One more down.
One more down.
Right here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
And are you seeing, because my question is, first of all, congratulations on some of your growth this year.
Thank you.
Because I did look at your scores. So my question is, since you are a homeschool base, because I did notice you are making some gains, but then your level 1 students, there's like, they're kind of like up or really, there's not a lot of middle. I mean, there is, but. So my question for you is, how do you use this assessment, and if your kids need some interventions, how do you provide that?
I will talk about it on a little bit of a higher level, and I'll let Linda go down into the granular stuff. I will say that this is one of the best tools that we've ever brought into our program. We give our learners assessments 3 times a year so that the facilitators can really drill down and see exactly what they need. So we have professional learning, like this week is our mid-fall break, and we have a lot of professional learning where the facilitators take a look at their first assessments and really map out where their kids, what they need, where those gaps are, identify those gaps. In addition to that, every single month we have data meetings at the school sites, and the school directors and a maker team member sit down and look at the MAP assessments or the SBAC, depending on what time of year it is. And they use the tools that are within the MAP assessments to identify what groupings their kids need to be in, so they're hitting those specific skills, and it really personalizes the learning. In addition to that, twice a year we have data meetings with the site directors, and we talk about their SBAC scores and where they see the biggest needs and the gaps and what they're doing to move their learners all the way up to proficiency. So, Linda?
So let me explain a little bit about what this chart is talking about. When each learner takes the MAP, they get what's called a RIT score, which is an academic measurement, just like an inch or a centimeter. And that's a level to the difficulty of the question. So when our learners take the test, they are also at the beginning of the year, we also can get a projected growth for each learner. So depending on what time of the year they took it, what grade they're in, they will get a projected growth, which shows how much growth we project them to score over the year. So what this chart is showing us is the blue column is showing us the percentage of learners who met their growth goal over the year. And so you can see that we have some pretty strong numbers. Now, because it's a norm, MAP, it's usually between 50 and 60%. Some of these learners may have been only a point or two off, which is why I have the red column, which shows the percentage of growth met. So say, for instance, a grade level is projected to go up 100 points over the school year. Well, you can see that the red is showing what they actually did score of that growth. So in 2015, 2016, we can see in ELA that we met 62.2% of the growth. In the next year, 2016, 2017, our learners made 87.6% of their projected growth. And this past year, we made 107.3%. So we exceeded the projected growth that MAP projected that we would achieve.
So the blue shows where they met.
The blue is the individual learners. How many of the individual learners met their projected growth?
So
the red is showing
so we take that for 17 and 18, it should give you an indicator of how they would do on the SBAC in 17, 18?
Not this particular chart. This is showing individual growth. So if a learner comes in, maybe we have a 4th grade learner, but perhaps they're performing at a 3rd grade level, this would show their projected growth over that time. If they exceeded that growth, then they made more than a year's growth.
Okay, well, thank you, but I still know my question is really, what do you do and how do you provide interventions for this? Because we could look at data all day long, so what do we do with it? And if I'm a struggling student, what do you do for me if I'm a homeschooler?
So with the MAP, and we do use other literacy assessments and other benchmarks at our school, but in tandem, we take a look at the class report, which will organize our students from the lowest RIT to the highest RIT. From there, we divide them into different groups depending on which band. We can find out from that which group of kids are kids who are at risk, the RTI level 3 kids, the kids who are RTI level 2 that need a small group instruction, and the kids that need that whole group instruction. We then can use a tool that's called the Learning Continuum that will group our kids according to the band of skills and concepts that they need to learn in each of the goal areas in math and reading.
Okay, so let me be a little more specific because we're still not answering. So, I'm a 2nd grade student. I don't know my digraphs. What kind of intervention do I get from your program? How do you provide that intervention for me?
Okay, so I'm going to reframe.
You know what I'm saying? Because we're talking about grouping, but
I understand. I'm going to reframe this a little bit
Okay.
because, as I said, the majority of this program are homeschool families. And so even getting our homeschool families to participate in testing has been a complete struggle, but we didn't fight with them about it. What we did is we provided for the parents a lot of training and support. So the information from this, they get a whole printout about their learner and what their learner needs to work on. And they work with them to make sure that they're filling in those gaps. I think that Heather wanted to add to. Did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, yeah, because
she also has a homeschool.
Okay.
So
No,
she's in charge of?
I'm not trying to be hard, I'm just trying to get an understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, so
Because, you know, we can just run data and have data binders all day long, but what do we do with it?
So each month we meet with our families one-on-one, and we sit down with them with each of their individual kids' MAP scores with a printout, and it shows skills that we can reteach, skills that they have really mastered, and skills to help them move forward. We can take their their scores, we can show the parent how to pop this score into Khan Academy and maybe get some extra reteaching help there. They can put in their reading score, and it will show them what reading level they're at. So when they go to the library and check out books, or when they're going to order books, they can be reading appropriate level that's just enough to challenge them to get them to the next, points.
So kind of like a personalized
Very
plan?
personalized plan. That's what we do with our kids. We personally plan their whole path with
And
them.
so if I'm a struggling student, I come and you give me the map and I go home with my child, how soon do you reassess?
So we check in with our families quite often, and with struggling learners, we even meet with them more often than once a month on quite a few basis to help them. Sometimes it's virtual, sometimes it's in person, but we do offer that. This year especially, we put a huge emphasis on Parent University, which is a series of webinars for parents to help educate them and give them extra tools to help their kids, because we know we're not there with them every day, every second. So we've been doing, we have some planned for math, for what do you do with a struggling writer, what do you do with a struggling reader, how can I help my child, get through this barrier. So we've been doing a ton on parent education.
I want to make sure that we paint a really good picture of this program for you, because these are not families that are just sitting in their living rooms or in a room in their home. They have lots of educational vendors. So if a learner is struggling, say in reading, there's vendors that focus on working with kids with dyslexia or reading difficulties so that they can help bridge those gaps too. So the EFs, which is our educational facilitators, work with the families to talk to them about what vendors are available to help reinforce those.
How do you choose your vendors then? What is the criteria for choosing your vendors?
Okay.
Sorry, you just opened up another question.
This is
very
very exciting. I should
have
I'm just looking for that green button though, so I'm like, uh-oh. So we have quite a lot of vendors. Uh-oh. I'm gonna get the Coke camera.
We're in the board question part now, so we have flexibility.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
So I won't speed talk. I'll
You
try
guys
to get
will
it out,
allow your
but
time
not, okay.
for your part.
So our program utilizes, as John said, a lot of vendors. We screen our vendors very thoroughly. They're all background, live scanned, insurance, business license, the whole 9 yards. And we actually have a great search tool on our website, a vendor search tool, so you can actually pop in your zip code and see all the vendors around you within a 10-mile radius. So, or a 25-mile, or you can search for, math tutoring and see and go through.
Well, I think I'm asking, are they vetted? Are they?
Yes. So
How do you choose them?
There's an application process. We speak with them. They get their live scan. They get their business license through their city. They have their insurance policy that we have as well. And I would say most of the vendors that we do work with also work with other schools and other charters as well. So a lot of them are very commonly known. I mean, we work with Mathnasium, we work with Sylvan, sometimes we work with, a lot of them are very popular in communities already, providing even after school support for kids, but our home study kids can access them during the school day as well.
Okay, thank you.
So I think it's fair to say that the homeschool families of today are like a mom or dad in a van with their kids driving all over the place. They are so busy.
No, I understand. I'm just very passionate about students that aren't being successful, and I want to make sure that they're not driving in a van and still not reading in 3 years. And then also, we can go on Google anything and find a program. So, it's great that we have a background check and all of those things. That's important. I know lots of stay-at-home moms that will pass a background check and all of those things, but I don't know what skills they have to actually give these services. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they're educational vendors. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of them. And I think that they have good reputations, and people hear from other people, and they go through our entire vetting process, which, as you heard, is fingerprinting, insurance, business license, all of it. If they're not serious about what they're doing, they're not doing it.
You know, I understand, but I just think it's really important that we're really vetting the people, because like I said, we can pass a check, I can go get some insurance, you can talk to me, but, you know, just making sure that they're highly qualified.
I promise you that they are. I've gotten calls from Laura and Heather both saying, you know, we know about this, and what do you think? And we've talked it through, just the people that have applied, because they just didn't have the right feeling about that particular vendor. And like, if they don't meet the criteria, and you don't think it's what is best for kids, then we don't need them on our vendor list.
Thanks, ladies, sorry. And sir.
No apologies.
And sir, thank you.
I just want to chime in really fast that this year is my older son's 12th grade, the final year in high school, and due to his interest essentially for going forward, we switched him effectively to the home study this year. So I've as much as I'm participating in iLead structure over these years, I never really had experience directly with the home study program. So the first couple months have been extremely successful from a perspective that the EFs who are working with him, and obviously, you know, being a concerned father of a high schooler who's a senior, wanted to make sure that this is another successful year for him in our program. I have to say I was extremely pleased with the initial first couple months, because he has received all of the, and my older son is really not necessarily an easy learner, let's put it that way. He has received plenty of attention and guidance from a perspective of the areas in particular where he has challenges, which are his writing skills, and advice on which particular paths and which vendors to work with in order to get successful programs, because obviously helping run many of the iLead support services, I don't always have time to at home work with him on those lessons, so we're very dependent on the advice from the EFs and the services that are offered through that. So I can attest that they're fine on it.
And I wanted to add one more thing too. Our team, our educational facilitators, we work in investment teams. I would consider them like professional learning communities, where we've got EL learners we're thinking about. We've got our special ed team. We're thinking about just different interests the kids have, but also kids that may be behind in reading or math. And so what we do is we work to look at the data. We think about how can we build into our kids, because some of them are being taught by their moms, or different things. So how do we support moms in doing that? So we do some things like we have webinars and workshops. We do things at our studios. We do STEM park days. We do a whole host of things, knowing that we're going to reach different families, different kids, doing these different things. But also we put a lot of emphasis on the EFs, the educational facilitators, who are credentialed teachers within the state. And we ask that they work with these kids. If you're noticing a gap, something that's a struggle, as you're looking at the body of the work, as you meet with these kids, we are working really hard to make sure that these teachers are working with these moms, checking in, how did that go, that strategy? And it's really powerful, because we're looking at individual kids. So not only is it a vendor thing, like that's great that they can, what's neat about the vendors, I will say this, is it is a lot of teachers that were like, I am so passionate about writing. I just want a small group of kids that I can teach writing to. And that is really cool. But equally, it's neat because we place a lot of emphasis on our staff working with kids and making sure that we're not letting them slip and things. And so it's neat that we have kind of that partnership with the parent, with the vendor, but also the responsibility as their teachers to make sure that they're successful. And so it's a process, but we really find great joy in that, because we're seeing that we're customizing the learning to each kid and their strengths, but also the things that they need to work on. So.
Just if I may make a comment, what we're looking for here is direct, measurable answers, and not your philosophy. That was a part of your presentation. I'm a big supporter. I think you're one of our best charters, along with AEA. And just what we're looking for is measurables, and the process through which, for instance, you You know, but I'm totally on board with your philosophy and I understand, so just for future. We're out of time for the question part, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to yield the majority of my time to Mr. Fox and Mr. Falsgraf. I just have 3 short questions. And do we have consensus that we allocate another 15 minutes for a question? You did, okay. So I will restart this. Go ahead, Ken.
Come on down, Dawn. Dawn and I knew we were in the same place in 1980 in Sandpoint, Idaho. We just didn't know we were. I'm going to run you through the same ringer I run everybody through. I'm an equal opportunity interrogator. But we'll see why. You all go through this, and some do better than others, and you do particularly well by being direct. To Kelly's point, I'm not an educator. You might have guessed that. Is some of this not the effect of, and I'm the only one that would put it this way, of other people's failures walking into your program?
I would think, I'm not certain about our home study program necessarily.
But I mean, I come into your school, unless it's my first day in kindergarten, somebody else, I'm leaving them for some reason, maybe I moved or whatever. Do you find yourself taking on a percentage of kids who, like I said,
Yes,
some
they
has
come to
dropped
us
the
with
ball?
deficits already, for sure.
Okay. So my understanding of what she's saying is your program has, anyway,
Our program has.
your program, unlike the teachers in the classroom where you've got a Falsgraf kid over here freaking everybody out,
Yeah.
you avoid that by looking at data on the computer and saying this kid should be here, and the computer can just go, ooh, that kid's not there, and maybe we can make a recommendation to.
Yes, it'll say they need to work on these particular skills and standards.
Okay.
It'll be very
Shay,
specific.
good. Shay, I'm gonna want a statement from legal saying that their site over there is copacetic. I don't want any attorney fees by somebody coming over here and telling us that that site doesn't fit Shasta. Okay, moving right along. Tell me, your virtual system, tell me what stops remember the K-12 fiasco? I signed in for a minute, you get ADA, and I got kids that are just dropping off the face of the earth. What fail-safes do you have in place for that not to happen?
Are you talking about iLead Online right now? Or
No, I'm
iLead
just
Hybrid?
talking about the systems where I log in for 1 minute, you get the ADA
There's
for a
nothing for
minute.
them, they don't log into things unless they have a specific online vendor. And that's looked at as we look at their progress. We want to
Okay.
make sure that they're making the adequate progress. So they're not logging in and then going to play.
Who's doing your SPED services?
We go through Eldorado's charter SELPA and we are.
Tell me in the online experience what child find looks like, and then the following up assessment process for SPED.
Okay, so there isn't an online process. Is that you're asking?
But I'm saying in the online environment, how do I know that the kid out there, how do I find that kid and assess their needs?
We're just saying, it's not an online program, it's in person.
Yeah.
So you would actually see the kid and say, I'm suspecting something here, let's have a chat with the parents, maybe we should
Yes.
assess the person.
Our educational facilitators are very adept at that. A lot of the kids that we get, especially in the last few years, come to us with an IEP. So we already have identified learning deficits and goals, and we meet their needs, whatever that IEP says, we meet those needs.
Here comes the curveball, you ready?
I'm
How
ready.
many OAH findings in the last 5 years against your school?
OAH.
Office of Administrative Hearing, Department of Justice, where you're down in Van Nuys and you've got,
If there were complaints, we were able to handle those in mediation.
so there's no findings?
Right.
Thank you. Tell your board, your governance board, just briefly tell me what it looks like in a sentence. I just stole his question.
There's men and women, and they're very good looking.
So I'm on your board then, thank you.
You guys did go to the same.
I see that you have an ability for a person that's appointed by this district to
Every-
serve on your board. Is
Every
that
charter,
correct?
it does that. It's part of the law.
So everybody's appointed?
They go through an interview process,
Okay.
and then the board interviews and then appoints.
So tell me, could I be a backup house consultant and serve on your board at the same time?
No, that would be a conflict of interest.
So you got 1090 language in your stuff?
Absolutely,
Perfect.
yes.
See how easy this is?
I feel like it's a test.
So you're not factoring yourself to death, right?
No, that's not helping.
Could you tell the group what that means?
It means that you sell your receivables in order to make your cash flow. And if we ever have had to do that, we've been able to replenish it and move forward.
I'm not your marketing expert here, but it sounds to me like you had enough corporate capacity at that school to base your projections on the reality of students that have been over there. And so you have enough corporate
Are you
capacity.
talking about Agudal?
Yes.
Yes.
That's really the only place I care about at all, by the way. Do you have any?
You just hurt their feelings.
You know what, there's a line. You gotta-
He's right.
Do you have any formal, I saw a community collaborative up there. Do you have any formal association with those people?
No, that was just a comparison of their scores as other charter
Wonderful,
schools.
thank you. Who initially expels your student?
Who initially expels a
Yes,
student? Failing?
what I'm getting after here is, here's the line of reasoning.
Okay.
I get expelled, that should be no surprise. You write the expulsion plan, which is also a comeback plan. Who do I appeal that to in your organization?
Who can you appeal an expulsion?
Tell me about I get expelled,
Okay.
my parents appeal. Is there a step above the person that suspends the kid?
Okay, so it starts with a suspension, a 5-day suspension.
Yeah, but
and
I
then
do
it would
something
go-
where I'm expelled and I
So
need.
the board expels you.
Okay,
Only the board has that right. They get a recommendation from the expulsion panel.
Okay.
Only the board can expel you. If a parent wants to appeal that, they can go to the county.
okay. Now, we all know that the school is responsible for the education of the student, even if they're incarcerated. Who picks up the tab on the education of the kid while they're expelled from your school?
We do.
Oh, I thought I had you right there. I didn't. I'm done, thank you.
Thank you.
No, nothing to add.
I'm just warmed up.
You're doing
Oh,
great.
yeah, I haven't stumped her yet.
You covered your
I'll let
1090.
the staff do their work, make a recommendation.
I agree. Can't cover your 1090 language, your board structure mostly, but apart from being good looking.
Yeah, I could say a little bit more.
Yeah,
I can be a little bit less funny about that.
Yeah.
We look for board members that have expertise in particular areas. So it might be real estate, education, business, have a business background. Our board president is, he works in banking. We do have an educator that's on there. I'm trying to think of who's on that particular board.
How many on your board? 5 or 3?
How many is on this board?
Yeah.
I believe there's 3, 4, no, 3.
Okay, so
Yes.
do you know it's 3 or 4, right?
4, and we're looking for one.
It's usually not. yeah,
It's 3 to 5,
Okay.
and right now we're looking for one more.
This board, do you have a board, some charters have a board for each charter, and you have an overall board for all the group of charters. Do you have that structure currently, where you have the board for AADUSD, you have the board for hybrid, and then you have a board that oversees them all, or how does yours work?
Every one of our sites is self-governed. They're all a nonprofit, so they follow nonprofit law in their governance.
Okay.
And then we have also iLead California, which is a service provider. It's also a nonprofit, and it has a board, but it doesn't have a sole membership with the other boards. So does that make sense? It means they don't tell the other boards what to do. They can't remove members. They just advise, and have an advisement capacity.
Okay. What type of oversight is there for the individual boards of each? Like ours is LACO, and yours will be our board in a way, right?
I guess so.
Okay,
Mhm.
so, all right.
As far as your reserve, if the gentleman could maybe get into that a little more, what your percentage is currently, and I only have one other short question after that.
I don't have the exact existing data, I just looked at it from projected going forward, but I know that we were able to meet the required reserve each year of the operation.
Are you going by a 4% requirement?
I think it's 3 to 5%.
Okay.
And usually for the non-classroom based.
3%?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're meeting that currently? Okay. And then the last thing, your MOU, are we going to redo that, or are we going to stay with the one that we currently have?
I think we'd have to, usually when you get a charter reapproved, then you do an MOU.
You revisit it?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
is there any items in the MOU that you guys are going to seek to redo, or you
Not
just
that
want
I'm
to go through
aware
the
of.
process?
Not that I'm aware of. We've really worked a lot in the past on the MOUs so that they
I know
were
we
kind
did,
of a
that's the reason I'm
win-win.
asking.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, guys, for being here. Excellent. We just went 10 minutes over, that's totally fine. And we'll see you guys soon. And thank you, my fellow board members, for your questions. We're going to move on to now 11.02, the second reading of our charter policy. Mr. King, Dr. Cooper.
We'll have Ms. Patterson come up for that.
Hi, Shay.
Hello.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Okay, just for the public, we had a long discussion last board meeting in regard to our charter policy that was already drawn up, and we had a couple of hours of comments from different board members, and the staff has incorporated those the input that we had along with the input from our legal department into a new document, some red line items with what we requested, and some blue items that are basically what our attorneys felt should be in there. And tonight we're going to have a reading of that, and then subsequent to that we're going to vote on it. That's it, go ahead.
Is that vote this evening?
It is on the agenda.
Yes.
Because we had a timeline.
Yeah, we have to get this done tonight, well, from what I'm told by the staff, for our audit.
Yes, so essentially when we discussed it at the last board meeting, there were some state recommendations that were made that need to be included in this new policy or amended policy. And the recommendations need to go to the state so that they can be reported to the legislature within a reasonable time. We do not have another board meeting by the time these recommendations need to be uploaded into the state system.
Isn't it like midnight tonight?
It has to be approved so that we can then upload all the recommendations into the system, and they want it essentially by next week.
By next week?
Yes, so we don't have any additional time to go through.
Okay, why don't you do your thing, and then we'll go to the board.
Okay.
Please.
So essentially the changes that were made, right now on the first page, most of them are just changing grammatical type things like a district being changed from a lowercase d to a capital D. The pages on 1, 2, those are just those types of changes. On page 3, the changes, once again, instead of Board of Education, it's Board of Trustees. You all are boards of trustees. And so that language was changed. Here on page 3, once again, it's just simply with the monitoring of charter schools, MOUs made capital. So it's just, like I said, on page 3, more changes as far as grammar is concerned. On page 4, there is just additional wording. Sometimes it's just the wording to clarify exactly what that sentence says. So for example, on page 4, at the second paragraph, towards the bottom, it says, for this reason, the district will allow the office to contract and we added with consultants to assist with.
I think page 6 is where we need to start.
Okay. So on page 6, some items were deleted. And that one was where it said that substantial items had been left out of the submitted application. Essentially, what is being said in this sentence is that if a petition, it has problems with, if there are petition problems in what was presented, essentially that petition is going to be given back. That petition is going to be given back to the charter, and the charter will either then resubmit it. And we're not talking about minor things like adding addendums or anything like that. We're talking about major problems with the petition. So it won't be that we allow them or give them 48 hours to submit missing items. So that has been omitted. Also deleted in the order to secure board approval. At the time to open in the fall, we're not guaranteeing that just because you turn in your petition by the fall that you'll be opening in the fall. So that was removed. Some of the language in the middle under evaluation of process and criteria was deleted, essentially because it says which incorporates best practices in the State Board of Education criteria for charter petition review. That is already in the matrix, so it doesn't need to be repeated. Towards the bottom, where you see the highlighted, it says applicants may modify their petitions. Once again, that goes back into the 48 hours, and it also goes into if this petition is not sufficient, that time is not going to be allowed for modifications.
Page 8.
So on page 8, it says the public hearing presentation will be limited to 30 minutes. This is just information to say that we're aligning our timeframes with LACO, that we are making sure that in that 30 minutes, and these are also some things that we're putting in policy, we're actually being more specific with the charters about what that time means. So as, for example, when we spoke to iLead and any of the other charters that are coming forward, we let them know you have 15 minutes to speak, we have 15 minutes to appoint.
We're actually better than LACO because LACO is 20 minutes total. Go ahead, so we have something at the bottom there, the charter petition review matrix and all state statutes.
Essentially, that was just information that was
Added.
Yeah, added.
Very good. Next page, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Page 9.
Page 9, once again, information was on the top of the paragraph where it says 6.5. This was an item that was the 16th item that required a reasonably comprehensive description, but it was removed from that element and it was turned into the 6th ground of denial. So that is why it says 6 instead of 5. And that is now added as number 6.
Next, please.
Okay, page 10. As mentioned before, we had a number of additions and recommendations. In this policy, we had to consult with financial side, with Lynn, with legal, with the academic side, and we needed to add in language about monitoring the charters and their fiscal solvency. So this was information that needed to be added, and then that's just for the legal financial part.
Okay, page 11, please.
Also, this is information here that needed to be added. It's also financial information as far as oversight, funds, audits, and what is required of the charters, and what we will request of them to make sure that we are monitoring their fiscal well-being.
Shay, before we move on, is it accurate that you guys went over the board meeting tape and went through everything to make sure all of the board members' input was taken into consideration?
That's exactly what we did. The tapes were thoroughly reviewed.
I have a question. So this red text is a result of the board member comments?
No,
Or is
not-
this a result of staff go back or legal?
Okay, it's a combination of everything. We listened to what the board recommended or had suggestions or questions for. We also listened to what our legal representative said, and we also were looking at what we need to do as an oversight group. So it was a combination of everything. It wasn't just one particular comment, because if, for example, a board member asked to include something in the policy, if it's something that could have been addressed through an MOU, something that could be addressed through different policies, then it may not have been included. Yeah.
Okay. And then, was the original document that you brought to us 2 weeks ago, was that vetted through legal?
That was, I wasn't privy to that original document. I do know that legal had looked at that document also, but with the changes that.
I know, so you had to look at it again. What I'm getting at is, so we're getting into a part of the document that, to me, seems, and you know, that's what's going to happen when you respond to us and we write a document by committee in a board meeting, that you listened, but that maybe things got overbaked for me. Too much detail, it might be too constraining. And the reason I bring it up here is in this particular paragraph, and I'm curious why we went into this much detail specific to financial issues, when really paragraph 4 applies to all aspects of charter review. So, you know, did we overbake the financial part, in my opinion, perhaps, because of, you know, our comments, or is that specifically suggested by legal or your own staff?
It's, I would have to say legal and our own staff.
Okay,
Through
all
looking
right.
at oversight.
So that's your recommendation, because it
not-
seems a little asymmetric to me when we start diving in one particular area very, very in depth, when there's many, many things that we are looking at.
That's
And
not-
I'll take ownership for that. That was at my request that the specificity be added to it, because after attending a number of conferences for charter school authorizers, getting recommendations from our county office that we submit letters to, that's what they actually recommended including in there to make sure that
I'm good.
we're doing what we're supposed to.
Thank you.
75% of failures are due to financial issues.
Hence the,
That's why it's so specific.
okay,
Thank
I'm
you very
good with
much.
it, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, that wasn't one of our items, I knew that Lynn did that. Okay, let's go to the next page, page 12, please.
This has to do with.
And I think Mike had a very good point, because we're not experts in this, you guys are, and I appreciate that you vetted our input. And I do see some of my input that's not in here, and there's only one that kind of strikes me as why, but I understand that a lot of work was put into this to make sure that what we had suggested was, you know, appropriately put in here.
Yes.
So thank you for it.
Here are more of steps and requirements that in compliance information that they need to submit as far as information for their petitions. It's just a lot more specific because one of the recommendations from the state also was that, for example, if someone were to leave this position right now, are there policies and procedures in place that that next person follows those same procedures?
So is the
And
state
uniforms.
recommendation then to include in this detail the timeline? The back and forth?
What?
Or did we do that to you? Because there's always, you know, it's a balance.
Mhm.
Any policy document is a balance. Is it a policy document or is it a handbook?
Mhm.
And you want to have a little flexibility. So I'm just wondering if we inadvertently, or even maybe inadvertently, just because I might not agree with my fellow board members, drove
Imagine
in
that.
this level of detail. So did we drive that in, or is that the guy, you guys organically? did that?
Like I said, everything is a combination of
What happens if we don't
input.
exactly meet those timelines?
Well, some of these timelines are required timelines.
Okay, so
So
they're
we
consistent
cannot,
with state
yeah,
law.
so there is no
Fine.
leeway.
Okay, so we're basically reiterating state law in our policy document. I'm good. Thank you.
And just so you know, legal went through all this.
I understand that, but legal says that it's legal. Legal doesn't necessarily say that I want to be that specific in a document and tie myself up. And that's what I'm driving at.
There is
If
things
these-
that took out.
Excuse me, if these are state requirements anyway, and all we're doing is copying and, you know, basically incorporating them, then I'm good.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm good.
Gone to page
Go ahead.
13?
Go ahead.
Okay, here, once again, is just corrections and language. For the only thing that was actually added, however, petition for renewal does not need to be accompanied by signatures, and that's just for the renewal part. Just adding information in there.
Page 14, I see that mistake that you guys fixed, the
Yes.
47607.
This is also just saying that if granted, we present grounds to deny the charter petition, had the material revisions been included in the original charter petition. So it's just whether we're considering if the requested revisions are appropriate.
Page 15, please.
Okay, here once again is a little bit more detail, and I have to say, right now, what we're trying to do with the policy is to get a little bit more detail. The policy was a little vague in some areas, so we're trying to make sure that, in essence, anyone who comes to petition in our district understands exactly what it is that is required of them and what we will do as far as our oversight.
I'm good. You're citing ed code,
Yes.
so you incorporated ed code.
Yes.
I do have a question on the memorandum of understanding paragraph. Just because, you know, we're supposed to be in the driver's seat, and I don't ever want to give up any authority that we have to, that other than, you know, I don't want to give up any authority unnecessarily. So is there a reason that the sentence says, and with the understanding that the MOU will not create an unnecessary hardship to the charter school? I mean, that's an unnecessary hardship just says that you can be taken to court and you can have a discussion on unnecessary hardship. Is there a reason, did attorneys put that in?
This is language that you'll find in other charter policies. You will actually find that language in there that it's an unnecessary. This one was added by our consultant, Sherry Shannon. This part was added in.
I mean, fine, preferably, I'd like to see that whole phrase stricken, because I don't want somebody going to our policy document and then coming to us and saying, I think that's an unnecessary hardship, or a, you know, unreasonable hardship. And so, you know, you just open yourselves up to people bringing each other to court. Do you guys feel similarly? I wouldn't mind
You'll get
striking
to me in a few minutes.
out of all of this. I would suggest we strike that phrase.
I see why you're bringing it up, I understand completely
Seems
why.
like an opening.
But you're saying
If it
basically.
wasn't in there before, I would have asked
They
about
could
it
make
last
the
time.
case, if they were in non-compliance of the MOU, they could make the case that they were in non-compliance because it was a hardship?
Or we're too hard on them when negotiating it or something.
Why,
But then the
Shay-
MOU wouldn't be signed.
why would someone like Sherry Shannon, who's probably the top leading person, you know, consultant on charters, why would she put that in there?
This is regular language in MOU.
All right, I'll
Yeah,
drop my
it is.
objection.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you,
industry
Mr. Price.
standard, I won't make us be different.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Okay, let's go on to the next page, please. Nothing on that page really except good. All right, so 17,
Once again, just
Okay.
corrections with district, maybe
Okay.
capital.
That's it. Board member comments. Ms. Jensen, please.
No, just to remind everyone, you guys did go to a charter conference, did you not?
Yes.
How many days were you there?
It was 3.
3 days, so some of this comes from some of that. So let's, and on page 11, just a quick question, not that I want to change or anything, because when we were talking about, it just says timely manner, that last part of the red, number 4. Not addressed within a
Oh,
timely
okay, I see what
manner.
you're saying. It said a board of trustees will have the authority to revoke a charter if the
Yeah.
possible issues are not addressed.
So I'm just wondering if it should be clear, or if what is timely manner?
Well, I think,
Was it done like that?
it's, yeah, because they're not necessarily timelines. I believe we get information from LACO that may give us that concerns.
Okay.
And then we address those concerns, so it's hard to say, okay, I'm gonna give you 30 days to fix this.
Right. Okay.
Some of them are defined, at least in the last situation that we had last year. Some of the timelines were stipulated in law, like when we issued the notice of violation, there was a specific amount of time determined, which in that case was 30 days. It isn't always 30 days though.
Okay. So-
Sometimes, for example, in the letters that I shared with you today, is an example of what we're doing. That is not a specific timeline that we can work with them. For example, we said we need it quicker because of the situation of one of the schools and we needed it sooner. Typically, we want to be good partners and say, you know, what's your workload? Can we have it in 10 days or 15 days? Reasonable amount of time. Some are defined specifically by law, which is why we left it a little open.
Got it. Thanks, you. Thanks, because I know this was a lot of work. You did a great job, so thank you.
Yeah, you guys
Thanks,
should.
Shane.
Mike, did you have anything?
No, I'm
Thank
good
you,
with
Mr. Fox. Mr. Falscraft?
Okay, staff, you've done a great job on this, but we need to get down to the cut and chase on this. This didn't just happen. This was by order of the State Auditor's Department, the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, who targeted 3 districts, only 3 in the whole state, that were being accused of sponsoring charters for the money. Do the math, it's in the newspapers. So the idea that we're just updating our charter policy, no, that's not true. The fact that we have to turn it in by a certain time should tell you that this just isn't an update. Their finding was, if you got a copy of the findings, if needed, I probably got it right here somewhere, but that the charter policy had not been updated since its inception. So staff has gone through a 5-year-old car and tried to turn it into a Lamborghini, and we've done a pretty good job of it. Okay? So there was a reason that there were some serious questions coming from here. And I don't like these throw it at the wall and see if it'll stick. The state is going to look at this very closely, and I think that you're going to find that it does some good definition. And if it scares off people who are not professional enough to stand up there and go through the grilling that these people did tonight, for example, then so be it, and I guess we'll have to deal with the financial outcome of that later. But here is the only exception I have to this. Again, the work you've done is incredible. You're not going to reinvent the wheel. I think you've put a great deal of detail in here. I think that I'll share one of Ed's concerns when he shares that. But the only and the biggest exception I have to this is I don't see any evidence that this district is capable of being the special education administrator and or actually supplying the services. And maybe it's because I know too much about that and I don't want to get into it and all that type of thing. But other than that, I think the document's a great document, and I think you've had a lot of stuff coming at you 100 miles an hour, and I think you've represented it all. But that end piece is a deal killer for me. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Falscraft. As far as my input before we conclude this reading, first, I want to thank the staff. You guys did an incredible job on this, and I want to thank Dr. Cooper, Lynn David, Shay. You guys did an incredible job. my hat's off to you. I think, I'm just so proud of you guys for your work on this. As far as, I had 23 items that I brought up, and I can see that you took them into consideration. There were things, like I said, that how does this policy ensure that the district is conducting robust oversight of charter schools' financial information and testing data and academic goals? These things are totally in here now. And they were to a certain degree before, but I see the changes that you made make them better, in my opinion. Does the policy allow for consideration for academic growth of charter schools using alternative measures, for example, the dashboard alternative school status? I see that that's loosely in there, so I can imagine there's a reason they did it that way, and I respect that. There's two things that I didn't see, and let me know if they're in there, and that will be done. Do you feel that this policy in a sufficient manner addresses this concern that I had? In recognition of the oversight fees the district receives from charter schools, what assistance and working support is the district providing throughout the year to the charter school? Is that in here in a specific area that I missed?
Well, as far as the oversight in general, which is what they're paying their fees for. For example, today I was out at one of the sites. I went down to Montana. What I do is I discuss scores. We talk about how they can improve student performance, what things they're working with that will help students, how they're communicating with parents. So all of the things that fall under the criteria of oversight is what I do, and the support that we give them on the financial end of what we're looking for, what they're deficient, maybe suggestions, because there's a fine line with what we can actually, I guess, information that we can give to them. You don't want to go too far over the line, but at the same time, we're giving them enough support so that we can make those recommendations as the oversight agency.
And I know what you do, and I think you're wonderful, and I'm going to support this as it is. I'm just wanting to understand. Is that, so in recognition of the oversight fees the district receives from the charter schools, what assistance and working support is the district providing throughout the year to charter schools? Is that in here somehow? Because if it is, I missed it. If it's not, if you tell me that, look, it's not in here for this reason, I totally understand, and that's important to me.
One of the things that we did mention, and it goes back to this level of specificity that's included in there, where it says, for example, we may hire consultants. In addition to ourselves, we also hire consultants, and the feedback that we get from them or the trainings that we go to. We actually do keep track of the expenditures that are made other than our the portions of our salaries. We do keep track of that as evidence, but we do actually, from the workshops we get, we share information with them. For example, today, based on the work with another consultant, I spent time on the phone giving feedback and working with a charter. So when we're talking about the consulting fees, what we're often doing is passing on information and giving guidance, but not telling them what to do, in the sense of we don't want to overstep our bounds.
Yeah,
we need to say these are the
sovereign
parameters. So where it talks about consultants in addition to the support.
I'm just wondering if that reflected in this document.
Yes, it's under roles and responsibilities essentially, yes.
What page is that on?
That's page 3 and 4. That's where we talk about the consultants, the meetings that we have with the charters, the procedures that we review the fiscal year. It's this whole area between page 3 and 4 of roles and responsibilities.
Excellent. Okay. Because I have had input from some of our charters that they found that somewhat vague. I'm very happy that this is in here now. And my last question is, this was item 21 that I brought up. Is there a non-compete clause with ex-employees that we have? Was there legal issues with that, or because I know it's not in here?
Yes, yeah, that was something that the legal did not, they included in
That we
here.
could
They
do
had,
that?
yeah, they had all of the recommendations that we had. I think, of course, that falls under something that's more ethical than,
Well, I totally agree with you, but there's nothing that, just want to answer, like I said, I'm going to support it. There's nothing in here that we can put in here, as per our legal, just so the record reflects, that could say that me and Ken and you could then go and start a charter next week and bring a petition here.
there was no suggestion that there was wording that we could put in here that would say.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other questions?
I'll have a comment when I vote.
Okay. Well, let's close this reading. And thank you so much again, Shay. Thank you, Lynn. Very pleased with you guys. Great job. And we're going to now, we should have probably indicated the time of the public hearing that we started, because we started. I missed a lot of stuff that we had in our old way to.
What we can do is we can go back and listen to the.
Yeah, we can do it, but let's just look in here, 11:01. If I go on here on the computer, is there a part that says what time we start this?
We used to have the blanks and you write it in.
Yeah, we used to have the blanks, it's the public hearing starts at this time and it goes. So can we please get those for the hearings from this point forward? Thank you so much, guys. Okay, so the public hearing started at some point, we'll figure that out and put it on the record. We're going to do it at 9:27, and now we're going to vote on this. 11.02, 11.03, I'm sorry. I was just talking about 11.02, second read charter policy. It ended at 9:27 p.m. and Ms. McCauley, please find out what time we started for the record, onto the minutes. And then 11.03 is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the charter policy as presented tonight.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I'll second that. Any discussion? Ken?
I'm glad we give this level of detail when the state, when the legislative audit committee gives you a direction. I don't think it's something you rubber stamp. I think it's very critical that this was discussed in this level of detail. I think it's super critical that that camera's on. Thank you, Tim. The only reason that I am not going to vote no for this is because we have existing agreements, do we not, with some of our charters where we are supplying SPED services. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this would put staff in a very uncomfortable position, but you know I will be watching very carefully, and it turns into how many FTEs are we doing this, because I don't have to tell you the risk that's involved for the trade-off. There's $1 million SPED case waiting around every corner. Okay, so, but that said, I will support your good work, and the only thing I would ask you to do is look very carefully. We have a responsibility to our own students far above anything else, okay? I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Falls. Mr. Fox?
No.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I don't either. Thank you, guys. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. The motion passes. 11.03 charter policy. 11.04 Fund 35 budget adjustment summary.
I'm gonna call up Ms. David. Just one comment. Just want to thank the board for your questions the last time, the points you brought up. I thought they were crucial to the staff looking into the policy in depth, and I just want to reiterate your thanks to staff, because there's a whole section on page 3 about the superintendent's role, and I designate, superintendent or designee, right?
Thank you, guys.
Ms. Shay Pattison just did an amazing job with David on this, and so I truly thank my designees in that role for
And Coop.
the work. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Everyone, Lynn, it's just the staff we have is second to none when it comes to this area. Very, very proud of them. Imagine doing this a few years ago would have been possible, so very proud of you guys.
So Fund 35 has to do with a budget adjustment, and I will turn that over to Ms. David.
Okay, what I'm bringing before you this evening is a budget adjustment summary. Normally, budget adjustments take place primarily during interim reports. This is for Fund 35, which you guys have probably, seen my little pots of money. This specific fund is related to actually specifically only for our Vasquez state grant funds. When we prepared the budget for adopted budget, estimated actuals, and adopted budget, we believed that all of our funds from the prior year, when we were closing out 17-18, would be fully expended for Fund 35. When I was anticipating the timeline of Vasquez, I thought we would be completely done and have paid all of our funds by June 30th. So I had put in that all of the funds would be expended in 16-17 and there would be no funds left in 18-19 for Fund 35. When we closed out the year, because, for example, our concession building, we were waiting for them to do a few things on it. We had a little bit of a delay, because of our water line and a couple things. It was not completed, so we had $1,062,000 at year-end close. And so that's carryover that we need to put into 18-19 budget. Normally that would take place during first interim, but because we need to expend those funds now, I need to come to you to ask permission to get spending authority already before we do a first interim report. So it's not new money, it's money that we have not expended, it's carryover. Sort of when you check your checkbook and you go, oh, that check hasn't cleared, it's similar to that. And so it's not new money, it's just money that was left that needs to have your permission for me to authorize expenditures in the current year.
Typical process for CIP projects that are extended.
Yeah. So if I can ask your permission for submission to the county office.
Well, this is not an action item.
Yes.
It is.
Oh, yes, it is actually. I need your vote to give me approval to sign.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
So then, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Again, if you could write on the computer anything, it's recommended that the board, that's a legal thing that has to be on there. I mean, it's recommended that the board, because that's the part of the process, that's your suggestion to us for an action item.
Correct.
It's part of the legal process, thank you. All right, so, moving on to, thank you, 1105, Vasquez High School Phase 3B Athletic Field Construction Project, change order number 2, United Construction and Landscape Incorporated.
Okay, that's my item as well. And I would like to invite Jim Bose up in case you have any questions. We talked about it briefly before, and I want to thank him for being here. He is our project manager for the project.
Jim Bose, huh? Who's
yes.
that? We haven't met him before.
Never seen him before. So what this is, of course, we do occasionally have some unforeseen circumstances, and this is one we ran into with our water pressure, and the water would not fully sprinkle and have complete coverage. So there was some work done to come up with a solution. We had several solutions planned, and this was the best one. So would you like to share what our solution was and verify your visual observation? We were both out there, and it does work, but I'll let him share a little bit about specifics of it.
I don't want to bore you with the detail. The report as written and the recommendation is precise. In consultation with our project architect as well as their landscape architect consultant, the best recommendation that they could make would be to add pressure reducing valves, increase the site pressure, which was low, and then install pressure reducing valves to protect the downstream side, the existing campus, and to provide sufficient pressure for the irrigation controllers to actually work as they were designed. That work was completed last weekend, and the cost to the district includes prevailing wage and overtime, actually, because the work had to be performed when school was not in session. I actually had to delay it because of homecoming and a couple of other activities at the campus. But it was successfully completed, and this week we've been monitoring the site pressure and making adjustments. We'll probably continue to do that for the next few weeks, but it appears to be a successful solution.
I'm just curious, since you stayed here all night.
I beg your pardon?
Since you were here all night.
Yeah.
I'm an engineer, so I'm just curious. So we couldn't drive the sprinkler systems at appropriate pressure on the upper campus, so we increased site-wide the pressure, and then we had to protect the lower lying areas and hence the pressure.
The existing campus has pressure-reducing valves on it to start with. Okay, I mean, that's the appropriate plumbing solution. However, the elevation of the upper campus and the lower campus, the head pressure on that water, we're controlling it as it existed and protecting, in effect, the gym and the classroom and so forth. When you added irrigation on the upper campus, it had to be at a higher pressure. So if you increase the pressure on the upper campus, then it was higher than design pressure on the lower campus.
I got it. So yeah,
and it really wasn't considered in the original design. In the original,
in this case we called it. So
it was almost a time and material kind of a thing.
The other simple question is, so I get it, we increased the water pressure overall so we could drive our sprinklers, then we protected the lower things with pressure.
And we hope now our water purveyor doesn't fool around
change
with
things.
The site pressure from the street.
I know.
And that's something we can't control.
I understand. I guess the only last question I had is, so if you had, yet still you had to change the sprinkler system out to lower flow, meaning lower pressure
Yeah, the
stuff?
original design sprinkler system assumed a certain site pressure,
that you just couldn't
which
get
did not
to.
exist.
Oh, okay. So you got someplace happy.
So the new rotors, in effect, will operate at a lower pressure.
I got it.
Efficiently. We believe that's the case, and go out there in the middle of the night when the wind's not blowing, it works perfectly.
We all know Provisos on that.
We all know how irrigation works, how sprinklers work.
There's a simple test of all this.
Go stand there?
No, you're actually in my area of expertise. I've done fields before.
Thank you.
I'm very much impressed, Mr. Bosch, with your ability to build concrete walls that are 40 feet tall and not fall over, and not so much with whether a sprinkler goes. Here's my question. When I've seen this problem before, there's an overlap when one valve is shutting down and the rotors are going, and then there's that 10-minute gap where that valve and this valve is going.
While the pressure builds up, right.
Yeah, so you have to set lapses in between on the timer, and the average landscape maintenance person doesn't remember that when they program the clock, and that turns into homecoming, half the field is dead. Will the clock right now kick valves off and completely on without that same?
That's anticipated how it's to be done.
I'll come up
The
and see it,
landscape
you can show me.
architect is preparing the time, the scheduled timing for.
So there is gonna have to be a lapse between.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
How does it go again?
It goes kind of like.
That's exactly right.
Kind of like some of the comments we had a little earlier. Just like that.
That's exactly right.
But anyway, my thing is the staff going to remember when they're setting the clock and they're using satellite controllers and stuff, that has to be set, that lapse time has to be set on the controller.
Yeah, the controllers we have.
Are they CalSense?
Are state of the art, so they can monitor the the ambient temperature, anticipated weather changes.
Satellite stuff, if we can only get the sprinkler heads to work right, that would be the next step.
But it still comes down to a
All
mechanical
right.
sprinkler that do break.
Right,
Cool.
you do.
Okay.
You gotta watch your field. Thank you.
Very good.
Mr. Bose, thank you so much. You know, you've been with us since the beginning, and I know this is not your first rodeo, but I'd like to think that this school is one of the more proud notches on your belt.
Absolutely.
You know, and you've been with us since the very beginning. Three superintendents, several board setups, and you know, since the bond was just a bond, you helped us get the matching portion for it. So my hat's off to you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you.
You got it. Okay, so.
Do we move in?
And yeah, let's have a move for this.
So moved.
Thank you, Kelly. I'll second that. Any other discussion? So it's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve change order number 2 by the staff for the amount of $27,476. And Ken, thank you for your help in this regard. I know that, no, I was being serious with the help you gave to the superintendent about this. So I'll call the question, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. 11:06.
Yeah, this again, I'm going to have Ms. David share, but this goes hand in hand with negotiations and what personnel and business overlap. There's a compliance piece on the business side of the house called AB 1200 in regards to negotiations on agreed upon settlement.
Let's move it in as an action item.
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Thank you.
Is this just not to report out on the long-term effect of any increase in salary benefit or medical, and what that looks like down the road to the district's budget?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. We did complete negotiations, and so this is the last step in the formal approval. So the approval process for any negotiations and tentative agreement, we did have the negotiations, we had a settlement, and the settlement was, for the record, a one-time off-schedule payment equal to 2% for employees in the classified bargaining unit that were here in 17-18, and it's only on their base salary, not any additional hours. And it's only for the staff that were employed at that point in time. So there was a tentative agreement. We completed what's called the AB 1200 that goes to county office. They have a minimum of 10 days for approval of it. We bring it back to you, and this is the final step in making sure that we carry out our end of the bargain. The cost, the total increased cost to the district was $42,605 one time.
That's better than 2 times.
Well, it depends who you're talking about. If you ask the employees, they might not think that.
I'm certainly
However,
not
it is
talking
very good
about
because
you,
we
man.
remain fiscally solid. So we were happy to be able to reach an agreement. They, I believe, you know, Dr. Cooper, I think it was what, maybe his first day here?
He actually came in before
Maybe
his start
before.
date to join us on negotiations. We may owe Lego.
He doesn't start for another month.
So it was fortunate that we were able to reach agreement in one day, and I believe that both sides walked away satisfied with the experience. We're able to confidently say that we can continue business, and the employees get something that's a reward for their efforts.
Excellent. Any further discussion on the part of the board?
No, it's great work. Who does that in one day?
Right.
So it just shows that.
Where were you
we're all
5 years
listening to
ago,
each other.
Mr. Cooper?
You know what, I can't take credit for that. And I think it really speaks to our superintendent's leadership. They share, CSEA share the number of years they've been waiting for this to happen too. And they're smiling and hugging each other. You know, you really found a team. You know that you really found people who care about each other. And they can object to it if I'm not telling the whole truth. But the fact of the matter is that it went extremely well. And we could have been talking about 2 years prior to and what's owed and who should be doing what, but it didn't come down to that, so.
That's in the past. Great job. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Call the question. Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Great job. Any additions to 12.01, future agenda items? We got clean slate for the first time I remember.
We have a few items up there, Mr. Porter.
Oh, you do.
It's not quite clean.
See, this has got to be in here for the community.
He wants you to revert back to the old paper.
No, I just want to be on it for community.
So, basically,
You're gonna have it next year, watch.
I'm a little concerned for the board's time, so I just wanted you to be aware.
I'm concerned as well.
Oh my
Should I wear my
God.
pajamas because we've already had the 1:30 a.m.
So here's.
What the hell is this?
Well,
There's 9 items on here.
right, the issue is.
Ed's finally learned my language.
If we go down the list, right, so the dashboard we want to come back to.
That's December, correct?
Right, so we can do that, the meeting in December, along with the CAS data report, that's fine. We can do the 90-day entry plan, it's a very small item, we can do that. Dr. Cooper, I would suggest that we do that more towards December, because I think, it could even be January, to be honest. I think you should come back when you're towards the end of that 90-day plan, so you can kind of show your benchmarks, where you're at and have a full report. But board, if you'd like to hear that sooner, or if your thought was to, for edification for the public to get that out sooner, he can share what he shared with you in the session.
I'm okay with it the way it is, whatever my colleagues want, I'm okay on that. The thing that I think that should not be on here, that's never been on here in the past, is all the 4 charters on here. Inspire, Options for Youth, Eagle Collegiate, and iLead Hybrid Renewal. We've never put them on there like that before.
Well, here's the issue there, and this is where my concern for the board's time is. You only have 3 more board meetings. You have the second one in October, you have one in November because of Thanksgiving, and one in December because of the holidays. So I just want you to think about it. I don't have to decide tonight, but I want you to think about just in terms of spacing these out. You saw the hearing tonight took 45 minutes. Do you want 2 of those in one night? I don't think so.
We can do 2 of those in one night, and the part that we can control is that, we try to be more efficient with our questioning. I'm happy with yielding my time because I have great confidence in the staff. I think we have always had great questions from Ms. Jensen. That's her profession. I think we could do 2 in one night. Otherwise, these are going to take too long. That's my opinion.
Well, I think if we can get the comments state on what the question is, that would be helpful.
Exactly.
How you reeled it in toward the end there, that would be great.
We are trying to spread the time out. The only issue, of course, that we have is that we do have a 30-day, and with one meeting in December and November, it creates where we have to get those to come in before that time, because we've actually lost 30 days by not having to do
But I'm not comfortable saying we're not going to ask questions. It is what it is.
I will ask the exact same questions that I asked tonight of every charter that rolls in here, every question. And you saw how it went tonight, yes, no, yes, no.
Tonight was great. It was 40 minutes. We only went 10 minutes over. Everyone did their thing.
Is there, let me ask you this.
Well, remember, tonight we have speakers, Ken.
This is not on the agenda, so let's use care. Is there something other, are there renewals up there?
Let's see, I'm looking right now.
And are they sensitive? Are they time sensitive?
iLead Hybrid is renewal.
Yes, so Inspire has their.
Inspire is a renewal.
Yes, their renewal, the iLead Hybrid is a renewal.
But Inspire has been in here already and
Yeah.
had their hearing.
Yes, so
this is the
Inspire will
vote.
be for their vote next.
Okay,
board meeting.
so,
we have Options for Youth, we have to hear. And then we have we have Eagle Collegiate, we have to
Yes.
hear.
Could those 2 hearings be on different nights within the 30 days, or no?
Well, right now, it can't be, right now, Eagle Collegiate, because they already came and presented their petition,
we have to do the 30 days, and so the 30 days falls.
So we do their hearing.
Yeah, so we have to do their public hearing, and we don't have time in December, it would be too late, it would be past.
So you have two meetings before December. You have the second one in October, October 25th, and then you have November.
Rather than try to schedule here, what if we just provided you guidance? And the guidance might be, because I agree with Kelly, you need to have time to, to ask your questions, and you gotta get our work done in time for the timeline. But perhaps that guidance I would suggest is, up to 2 per meeting.
Do what?
Hearings, because the hearings take longer than the votes,
Correct.
typically. So up to 2 hearings per meeting, and if you need more than that from us, call a special board meeting. I mean, either that or we say, okay, up to 3.
That was my.
I would think one hearing and one vote would be the appropriate way to do it. You start having all these hearings together and one turns into the other.
Well, we do have, actually, the public hearing, we don't have more than one public hearing in at a board meeting.
That's
So
good.
we've already scheduled it so that there is one.
Okay, that takes care of it.
Maybe my suggestion is, just for old guys, along with what Ken said, you guys do the scheduling. I guess the suggestion is 1 hearing, 1 vote, and if you need more than that in any given meeting, call a special instead.
Okay.
Because we don't want to stay all day.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good.
That's
But
helpful to
we're
us
willing
to
to
know.
come in for specials as required, so we meet our
Well, the
obligations.
specials go pretty
I was
quick.
gonna say, that's helpful for us, because once the submission, we unfortunately don't necessarily have control over when they submit. And once they submit, it starts the timeline. So depending how the month is and the meetings are scheduled in the holidays, we really don't have flexibility. So
So that helps.
it's 30.
The other thing is to remember is
That's
that
good.
tonight, we didn't have the speakers. We've had like Eagle Collegiate that brings a bunch of speakers, and we didn't have the speakers tonight, which is unusual.
Because that's another 20 minutes
Yeah,
potentially.
that'd be another 20 minutes if you had speakers, so
When's our next board meeting?
25th.
We are gonna have the vote we're gonna have the vote for iLead. on the
And a
25th.
submission for Compass, which is a renewal. Inspires.
But that's no fine, that's okay.
I would say that.
Okay, I mean, if we're gonna discuss this too much more, what we should do
I'm
is.
not gonna be here in November. My daughter's having a baby.
We'll have to do without it.
Huh?
And if they're on timelines, we'll have to do
Yeah,
without
so
it.
just letting you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a baby too.
Okay, so we're.
Appreciate the input. I
Well,
think
or
we're
the
good.
other thing, I just, just as a suggestion, not that I want you to have to spend your time when you're with a new baby. I think if we needed to, we could, if we did it with enough advance time,
Well,
we could do the.
What I'd like to do is,
She just volunteered you calling in.
Calling in
Calling
for the
in your
meeting,
grandchild.
there's a procedure, I know, just because I know you like to.
Depends where we are in that process.
Well, that's what I mean. If you're in the delivery room, you don't really, because we got to enjoy that with Shay when she was having her grandbaby.
so we stay true to the format of the future agenda items. This is not where we're supposed to discuss too much this stuff, just the submission for what's supposed to be on future agenda items.
Correct.
We've gotten in big trouble on this before amongst ourselves. Me and Mike and Larry had a big fight over it once, so I'd like to avoid that. So what I'd like to do is just does something belong on here? That's what this is supposed to be. There's just a lot of discussion right now, what should be and shouldn't be, which is fine, I guess. But let's stick to 1 vote, one hearing, and expect some hearings to go much longer if they have 20 minutes of talking.
Correct.
And we choose to go longer in our questions than 15 minutes, which is our prerogative. So right now, we're going to leave it as it is. That was consensus on the board, and we're going to leave everything on here. And thanks for putting them on there.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I understand why you did it now. So we're going to go on to calendar, and our next board meeting is October 25th, followed by November 8th and December 13th. 3 more board meetings for the rest of the year. And we're going to go on to 1401, closed session. This is great, we have 5 minutes left. Awesome. We had a closed session from 6:40 until about 7:20. Nothing to report, no decisions were made. 15:01, adjournment. Do I have a move, please? All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. All in favor of adjourning at 9:55? Aye? Aye. Excellent. Great meeting.